Stoicism is a fascinating branch of philosophy, with lessons that speak deeply to people, especially in this modern age of uncertainty. Young men, especially, find themselves drawn to Stoic teachings from notable figures like Marcus Aurelius, Epictetus, Seneca, and so many others. But within the modern zeitgeist, Stoicism has a problem of being drastically misunderstood, characterized often as detached, emotionless, or apathetic. So, who's to blame for this weird perception of Stoicism? Modern interpreters of the teachings, people that Stoic ideas attract, or are the core concepts of Stoicism fundamentally flawed? I'm Jared, author, creative, and alchemy enthusiast, here with.
I'm Dylan. I'm a reader of history and literature, and I'm passionate about the stories and lessons we learn from them.
And this is the Acastic Record. So, if it wasn't obvious, today we are talking about Stoicism, Stoic philosophy, and at least from what I've been able to surmise from my experiences, from people I've talked to, uh, a bit of a PR problem that Stoicism seems to be facing nowadays. Really, the entire concept of this came from no joke, from a barbershop conversation I had a month or two ago, where I was talking, the topic got to philosophies and whatnot, and said, "Oh man, it would be so great if we had real philosophy courses in school back in schools again." And the this one of the barbers near me, she said, "Ugh, I know if they put that in schools, all the guys would just go for stoicism or whatever, so they'd be apathetic about everything." And I was like, "Oh, oh no." Oh, we've reached that point. Okay, that's not good. And so you kind of look around the internet, look around. You either, and I can see why. I will say that I can see why if you do just a cursory search just of stoicism, and it's like, yeah, you could read the Wikipedia, but how it gets interpreted, or the people that aren't even actively seeking it out and just kind of absorb it through osmosis, uh you're gonna get it through. there's pretty much uh there's pretty much only a very select few interpretations of stoicism that are around, and that's Sigma Dude Bro grindset that I've lovingly started calling broicism. And then there is AI self-help videos, which you can find in the disturbing tens of millions, if you try to look for it, like on YouTube. um and all of it kind of.
Unfortunately, my first exposure was coming
Indeed.
across some of those videos, and it's just
Mhm.
like it's just the same 10 quotes
Yes,
from
oh my god.
Seneca and Marcus Aurelius.
uh
Just the same 10, just on loop,
yeah, that's it, that's
different
all it
voices.
is. But don't forget that everything has to be delivered through a voice that sounds like they're really, really trying to stay focused and sound serious, with pictures of guys that look really ripped and buff. And if anybody were to walk into the room while you're watching it, you would feel like you had to really explain yourself. Yeah. So really, what we're here to do today is we want to define kind of just the basics of stoicism, and talk about some of the ideas, some of the figures, and what it is, because we and Dylan both agree, I'd say to a large extent, that it can be a healthy, positive, and good, just an overall beneficial mindset to integrate into other beliefs. Uh, like any philosophy, it does run the risk of being navel gazing, where you will sit there and do nothing but just think about thinking. The person who thinks about all the time has nothing to think about except thoughts. So, Dylan, defining Stoicism, so we're kind of all on the same page here. Would you like to give the definition that you're operating with, so we can roughly say that we're operating on the same framework, and I'll probably give one of my
Yeah.
own, and we'll make sure that
Okay.
we're talking the same language.
Sure. So what I have found, just from some cursory research, because how much time do you really have to deep dive
What do you
too
mean?
much with what's that?
Oh, I was gonna say, what do you mean?
Uh,
Work, parenting, family, all these things? Yeah, those are really conducive to uh, deep research. Yeah, all the time.
yeah, yeah,
It's-
yeah. It's the balance of all right. You have a job, you have family, and you have your hobbies and sleep.
hmm.
Choose three.
Yeah, imagine touching grass.
Yeah. All right. So, Stoicism as a philosophy. Really, it's the to serve as a practical guide to living, uh, emphasizing self-discipline and moral improvement. Based on going with Stanford's Encyclopedia of Philosophy definition here. Traditionally, it's divided into three interconnected disciplines: logic, physics, and ethics. The implementation of all three uh, constituting the highest good of virtue, which is necessary for living a well reasoned life. Uh, um, in, in practice, you have the desire to have emotional self control, a calm problem solving mind, and rational judgment. Um, Philosophical discourse is the highest importance, and seeing things in the world for what they are, understanding the how and why, not allowing circumstances to lead you into despair or rash judgment. Uh, Passions, anxieties, and insecurities are misguided reactions that need to be controlled. Um, and as far as like core themes and tenets, that's what I've got written down here.
All right. Yeah, so all of that sounds correct. So yeah, Stoicism is like you said, it's just it's a philosophy that is supposed to be a lot more practical than a lot of other philosophies. That's easier to plug into everyday life, where there's a lot of philosophies that can go off the rails, and like we said, Stoicism could eventually technically go off the rails depending on how it's treated. But with the focus on self is really kind of the big one of the big words to go about here. Like, yes, part of self, in obviously in saying the word self, means how the self relates to others. It's not just I am only ever thinking about myself all the time, but how do I relate to others in a way that is controlled, in a way that is that I don't let other people, other events, things outside my control affect me. And yeah, a lot of it does have to do with what can I do to improve myself, to improve my situation, to improve uh to improve my my surroundings, because you know in theory, the if everybody were to try and live in that way, it would definitely lead to a better world, or at the very least, better than where we are right now. So, um, yeah, I think that we're operating off of a pretty similar framework there. So that is good. With Stoicism, it's very much wrapped up in names. Most everybody has heard of Marcus Aurelius. That's kind of the one. If you're ever looking, um, we've all seen the curly haired dude that's saluting from a horse. Everybody's seen it. That is Marcus Aurelius. But there's a
Also, just
lot.
like any like marble bust of a you know bearded
Mhm.
dude, it's probably Marcus Aurelius. Also, if you've seen Gladiator, he's the emperor that gets killed by Joaquin Phoenix at the beginning of the movie.
I have not seen that. Hmm.
What?
I have not seen. Oh, maybe I have seen Gladiator. It might have been. How old is the movie?
I mean,
Is it from the
probably
2000s?
I want to say pre 2010.
Okay, I might have watched that with my dad. because my
Okay.
dad he would rent so many, but I might have just been young and like this is boring, you know, teenagers. So
Yeah, the things we don't appreciate when we're younger.
exactly the things
Yeah.
I
Don't
didn't
don't movie.
appreciate. Yeah, movies about history, but at the same time, I'm like, okay, maybe a lot of the things that I did when I was younger really did help me grow into a more well-rounded person. Huh. Okay. Yes, I have thanked
Yeah,
my father for the things
two
that he exposed me most
2000.
to. 2000?
Mm-hmm.
Oh wow. Yeah, then I feel like I definitely saw that.
Yeah.
It sounds exactly like the kind of thing that my dad would watch
Yeah.
in late night movie night.
Did Ridley Scott was cooking in from 2000 to 2010, man. Because
Mm,
2000 he had Gladiator, and then 2005 was Kingdom of Heaven. So
okay.
yeah.
So, yeah, so Marcus Aurelius obviously the biggest name there. Um but from from what we can, most history can surmise is that it was around this Hellenistic period, and that it started to crop up. Hellenism is such a weird thing. I've been doing a lot of dives into mythos lately, and I don't think if I ever see the word Helen again, I am going to scream because oh my word. It's bad, bro. Like,
Yeah.
everything is Hellen, like Hellenized Egypt, and like that's cool. Hellen, and the Hellenization period in Greece.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, I get it. Thank you.
Yeah.
So,
Oh, when Alexander the Great, conquers all around the Mediterranean and deep into Asia, the dominant culture, the dominant set of values spreads throughout, whether anyone wants it to or not.
yeah,
And it's
my,
just the way that kingdoms and empires work.
my boy Iskandar. Anyways,
Mhm.
uh, so so a lot of names that we're just gonna fire off: Zeno of Citium, and Chrysippus. That's a bigger one.
To the two founders of consider the two founders of Stoicism. Uh, Zeno uh, founded the school of the Stoic school. He started off with the Cynic teachers in Athens,
Mm,
um, and then Chrysippus was the third head of the Stoic school after the time of Zeno. He uh, gets called the second founder because of how much more he expanded upon the structure that Zeno had started. Much of the system of logic that you can find when you dig into how the Stoic philosophy is structured. Um, Much of it is from Chrysippus, so he gets a lot of credit there. Unique thing I found out, um,
mm,
the so there's the three eras of Stoicism, the early Stoa, middle Stoa, and late Stoa. Uh, Early and mid, we don't have any complete works from these time periods.
amazing.
It exists in fragments, or it is uh, secondhand anecdotal recordings of the people, or as is the case with like Chrysippus, is kind of reverse engineering the Stoic school of thought to back to him and finding his fingerprints in it.
Hmm.
So
Yeah, if we didn't have so many historical library burnings, that we might be
yes,
in more luck. But unfortunately,
yeah.
things like that. It makes you
Mhm.
just think, what could have been? What could we have had? How much better would things have been if we had even a fraction of the things that were lost in like the Library of Alexander and whatnot.
Yeah, I'm frequently frustrated that the response of invading armies of a different culture's first thing is to try and uh, destroy the identity of the people that they conquered by eliminating any written works that they had to look back at for their own history and their own sense of self.
Hmm. Yeah, the
Because then, generations later, they also don't get to learn from that.
debasement and detachment from the source is
Mhm.
a recurring theme throughout a lot of history. I have been very much embroiled in truth with distance. Truth plus distance is a very interesting thing. Humans have been playing a very very long game of telephone with the fundamental truths of reality, where we had a point where we had people that were directly connected to the source. They probably wrote a lot of it down, and now it's gone. Good job.
Yeah.
Isn't that nice? And so,
Hmm.
yeah, it is always frustrating, but it is frustrating yet amazing and interesting that we can still piece things back together, and we can still, because a lot of early philosophy, because I've been diving, face first into a lot of this stuff, really was pulled together by just observation. A lot of it wasn't, oh, we're gonna do all these, crazy rigorous scientific tests and all these crazy things. A lot of it started with, huh, every time X, Y, whenever Y, Z, intriguing. And that's it. That's really that's really all it was. And so they they were able to they were able to figure this stuff out in the cave, the box of scraps. So, so
Love it.
yeah, so other names that appear pretty often, Seneca is a really big one. Crossing over from that BC to AD time frame, if you have anything on Seneca.
Yeah, neat little thing that I didn't know going into this. But like I looked at the time period and of him and I was like, well, hang on. That's turn of the millennium. That's when the church was, that's the time of Christ. The church is growing. That would probably be about the time of Nero. Sure enough, look it up, and Seneca was tutor and advisor to Emperor Nero. Uh, he did a lot of philosophical works, wrote a lot of plays, all of them tragedies. Uh,
Amazing.
uh, wrote lots of essays and letters on moral issues. He wrote a play on Medea, which if anybody's a Greek myth buff, that would be the wife of Jason of the Argonauts. So there's a tragedy play about her there. But he actually has a lot of artwork about him specifically and his time of death. And I read some, but picked up this book that was a collection of Stoic writings from Seneca, Epictetus, and Marcus Aurelius. And there's a description about Seneca the Younger, just his life, and especially the end of his life, just how he did approach his day to day and the interactions with the emperor with this um, acceptance for the circumstances as they are. He did not seek out he was wealthy because of his the patronage he had from Nero, but he didn't use it to live lavishly like so many others would if they were in that position. He lived very simply. He was not in the best health because of the way that Nero ruled. He was seeing traitors everywhere, and there, the one group that was planning to try and overthrow Nero, to try to bring Seneca over to their side. Seneca didn't didn't follow through on it. Admitted that he was not going to do it. Nero still said that he had to pay with his life anyway. And so there is a numerous like paintings and other pieces of artwork showing his death and being commanded to cut his own wrists, but because he was in such poor health, it did not happen very fast at all. And so he ended up drinking poison. But it is described as dealing with a very like because it is now like adverb, a very stoic way of dealing with it is just like, yep, this was expected. This is how things are. This is the logical like end of things. So I'm just going to accept the circumstances. So
Yeah, Nero Claudius was kind of a jerk.
it's very, yeah. It's the more you learn about him, man, he is like there's some
What were we doing,
stuff that
dog?
well, some historians are like they look at the records about Nero and it is generally accepted as just like, yeah, he was a terrible person, kind of crazy or very crazy.
Hmm.
His family was a complete mess, so naturally he comes up totally messed up. Obviously, does all this persecution against Christians, using them as torches for his garden parties. We won't get too into the details of like how awful those were. So it's like, yeah, it makes sense that like a despot like you would get overthrown.
Hmm.
Like you followed your whims, you killed family and friend, and were just vicious to anyone that was like seemed opposed to you. Like you can't be surprised that people would want to betray you. So
Hmm. Yeah, it's fascinating. It also kind of makes sense to a degree of, what could a extreme version of just about any teaching lead to. Obviously, I don't think that Stoicism says that you should totally go out and kill a bunch of people, but oh, people
yeah,
interpret stuff
well,
differently. Oops.
yeah, and well, and that's one of those situations. Like for one thing, Seneca wasn't around for like all of Nero's
Yeah.
life. Like Seneca was there was a period where he was banished from Rome. And he lived elsewhere, and it wasn't until later on that Nero's mother arranged for him to come back to Rome, and she was, scholars are like understood. It's understood that Nero's mother was trying to rule through him, um, but obviously he had her killed. Uh, but yeah, Nero's mother arranged it for him to come back and serve as an advisor and tutor to Nero. But like at that point, Nero's an adult, um, probably very much set in his ways, and I wouldn't be surprised if bringing Seneca on was more so of a status thing. It was just like, oh look, we've brought back the great Seneca the Younger, one of the great philosophers of our time, to serve as an advisor to Nero. So see, he's you know gonna have some more tempered ways of ruling, and Nero doesn't have to listen to someone if he doesn't want to, and that showed.
Hmm.
So
from uh from that whole Nero aside, and from Seneca, we get to Epictetus or Epictetus. I've heard both pronunciations. I'm genuinely not sure which one is the quote unquote correct, but Epictetus is definitely kind of easier to say. But yeah, Epictetus is actually really interesting because or I guess from before Marcus Aurelius, we had talked about, who was an emperor. Epictetus was a slave, and it's like, oh, if this worked for an emperor and a slave, that's kind of it's kind of the full spectrum of people that you
Hmm.
really, that something can apply to. So there must be something there. It's not just a luxury
Hmm.
belief to be held by the elites. It's almost kind of an anti-luxury belief because it's like, hey, you don't really need to be all, you don't need to be all adorned and uh, worried about how you're presenting yourself and everything. That's got one of the problems. Like, obviously, look smart, sound smart, but you also don't need to obsess over it, which is what luxury tends to do to people. But Epictetus, yeah, he did not have a lot of things going for him, but he really held to that to this and believe that you accept life as it happens, you accept your circumstance, you accept where you are, you accept where you go, um, and find a way to be okay with it. It's not a bad way, honest, not a terribly bad way to go or bad way to live.
Yeah, I think there's there's a very much a resiliency uh, in his life that is inspiring.
Mhm.
Because, like as you said, he born into slavery. He studied under one of the the many Stoic teachers in Rome at that time, um, which there is overlap with his lifetime and
Mhm.
Seneca.
Yeah,
Seneca died in 65. Epictetus was born
in
in
AD 50.
50.
Yeah.
Yeah, 50. Died in 135. But he founded his own school after, because he was emancipated from slavery, um, while, which I'm sure is, was the barrier of entry for him being able to study philosophy. Established his own school, studied philosophy, um, emancipated from slavery, uh, started teaching philosophy himself. At one point, uh, near the end of the first century, the emperor at that time just banished all philosophers from Rome,
Hmm.
which I've not looked into that particular for
Domitian.
Domitian, but I'd be curious to see what the reasoning is behind that.
That's not the first time in history that they said, all right, all the philosophers get out because they tend to be very upsetting to order. That's yeah, that wouldn't be the first time, and it won't be the last.
Yeah, yeah, that makes sense.
Mhm.
But yeah, after that banishment, founded his own school, and you think about that it's just like you were born into these circumstances, and granted, it's like it's all you've known, but you are emancipated. You get to become a philosopher and step into this place that historically is a respectable uh status to have in the society in which you live. And things begin to turn around. You become a leader, a teacher, and then your emperor says that you don't get to be in that city anymore, and your life has been completely upended. You get to pull up roots and go and live somewhere else, and you don't have a choice in the matter.
Mhm.
Which there's a level of like he's been a slave. He's well versed in Stoic philosophy, having to do things because they are necessary, because that is the circumstances you currently find yourself in, is not a stretch. But from like for those of us living in the 21st century, it's like that is a kind of like a steel of character that you don't often find
Mhm.
without having been through strenuous circumstances of your own.
Yeah.
But I like that his teachings are philosophy is not just a theoretical discipline, it is a way of life, which is a very nice change of pace compared to so many other people that you know claim to be philosophers. Is that it's all theory and it's all thinking and talking, and there is much more of a taking responsibility for one's own actions and your own agency in in the circumstances that you're in, and that you are the person that's at the steering wheel of how you handle and interpret what's going on in front of you.
Mhm. I another one thing is that I personally like because I've been diving into all this is that he apparently had contributed a lot to the idea of memento mori, which is just the hey, by the way, we're all gonna die. Just a little heads up, everybody's gonna die someday, and so the I, it is always kind of nice, I guess, to hear that there were some people that are trying to inject this idea into their philosophy because the reminder of of a clock and the reminder of a time is what spurs people to action, spurs them to desire, to want, to meaning. People will actually do things if there is some known or unknown timer. A great way to test this is for anybody that has children that's listening. Start just counting down if you need them to do something, and just it's crazy how fast they start moving. They
Yeah,
don't know what's gonna happen. They
it
just
works with my daughter and it works with my dog. It's so weird. Like, like
10,
yeah,
9. They're like, ah, what do we
oh,
do?
she doesn't even get 10. If I need my daughter to like, hey, we're not playing with that anymore. We need to go brush our teeth, or we need to go take a bath, or because we're potty training right now, we need to go sit on the potty for a bit because it's been a couple hours and you probably have something going on there. Or same thing with my dog. My dog is outside and she's eating grass. She's weird like that. It's like, hey, we need to go inside, and she's pretending not to hear me. Both of them, I just say like 3, 2, 1, and then Gemma will just sprint. My dog will just sprint into the house. Yep, as if she's just
Ah,
like, oh, I'm waiting on you, Dad.
so what are you talking
And
about?
then
Yeah.
Annalie will just like let go of that thing and she will move on. And it's
Mhm.
just like, it is crazy how we can just like, if you if you implement counting down early enough, it just becomes like a Pavlov reaction for
Mhm.
them.
Yeah, but the yeah, just that idea of um we're all on a clock, we're all on a timer, and most people don't want to think on it. Obviously, me and
Yeah.
Dylan here come from a Christian background, so death loses a little bit of its fear. It's obviously it's harder with for other people, but at least for self, it can be a more pleasant reminder to be like, hey, this is your labors on earth will be done someday, and you will be called home. However, that also the promise of that means your labors on earth will be done. There is still an end, so hop to it. And
Yes.
so you hop to it, chop chop. And so I just really like that, and I think that that is a good thing that Epictetus was very big on pushing. Just reminding people like, hey, you've got time limit. Do not forget to find a little bit of meaning in everything that you're doing. So yeah, and then of course the last one we have here was Marcus Aurelius. I don't know how much more you wanted to add about him. I'm sure you have a few things, but
Mhm. Um, it's very interesting to just see like overlap with as you when you dig into history. This is just a small aside.
mhm.
Uh, that you have like, oh yeah, Marcus Aurelius. Well, was born, you know, uh, 80, 121, died apparently 81, 80. Um, but like, there was, Christianity did not become the religion of Rome until the fourth century. But um, yeah, I had a religions class in college that was about early Christian writings, and it was like not a it wasn't a great quality class in my opinion, because the professor like was not operating with what I think was the correct definition of uh, historically accurate biblical text.
Mm.
uh, because he's like, like if to give you perspective, he said, "Hey, we're gonna read Matthew, Mark, and John, but we're not gonna read Luke because it's the least historically reliable uh, gospel." I'm like sitting there, I'm like, it's literally the primary purpose of that gospel is to be a historical account
Y- Hmm.
with like
Sus.
first like with like Luke going around and getting first and accounts from people that knew Jesus. That's the book. But we're gonna
Hmm.
say that we're not gonna read it because it's not historically reliable.
Hmm.
That's silly. Um
Yeah.
but but
Intriguing.
you know,
Okay.
it was some interesting exposure to some other sources of information to dig into. And one of the books that I actually like, was looking over my shelf the other day, and I rediscovered it, was a recorded conversation called A Dialogue with Trifo. And it was written by a Christian living in in Rome at the time of Marcus Aurelius, named Justin Martyr. Uh, and it's his experience having a discussion over time with some Jews over Christ, and it's like, oh, I didn't know that they were like living at the same, they were around at the same time.
Hmm.
But I think as far as like I didn't get a chance to really do much digging into Marcus Aurelius, ironically, despite him being like, as far as the three stages of or time periods of Stoicism, the him being the last like great Stoic philosopher from the turn of the millennium. Um, I was thinking as I was reading about these different periods and the contributions that each group of men made, and the whole deal with seeing the Stoic thought as being pathetic and detached from the world, and seeing how Seneca and Marcus Aurelius would uh, approach things in particular. It's like I can see where the logical end point is, that you just deal with circumstances by emotionally removing yourself from them.
Yeah.
But,
That's. I mean, yeah. That's not a entirely entirely incorrect way. Yeah, people could absolutely get to so you just don't care about anything when really it's just create emotional distance from the things, the people, and
Mhm.
whatnot that cause you that strife. And so if you are particularly nettled, has become our favorite word, between each other by someone or something, one of the options that is available to the stoic TM is to just emotionally detach yourself from that thing, that person, not to emotionally detach from everything, and also not to just go, oh well, the world annoys me, so I'm just going to be detached from the world. That is not what is being prescribed, but it is probably from partially from that interpretation of, yeah, detach, pull away, maintain your own emotional and mental sovereignty from people and things that are just not beneficial, to you, that you have the choice, at least, to engage with. Like, yeah, nobody's happy about paying taxes or whatever, but please do, like, do not need the IRS kicking down your door. So things like that. But if you have a person in your life that you've looked at, you're like, do I ever feel any positive feelings, any goodness when this person's around? No, no, I don't. What? why am I bothering with them? And so that's a yeah, I could see that though being construed into so you're supposed to just detach and hate everybody, which is not the
Hmm.
case.
Yeah.
Um, so from that, we jump ahead in time. There's a few others that we're going to probably cover here a little bit later, or if at all, but just some other names that get lumped in with Stoicism. Two that I see a lot are Miyamoto Musashi, who was Japanese samurai. Really cool dude. Very interesting, if nothing else. He was a a very renowned warrior. He has a whole bunch of confirmed wins of duels under his belt, and he,
I believe he had no losses actually.
I mean, well, yeah, he pretty much lived to a age to be able to retire. So
Hmm.
that's pretty much how you know you don't lose.
Yeah, that's true.
But yeah, so he gets associated a lot with Stoicism because in a lot of his texts, he wrote at least two texts that were preserved by one of his students. One was the Book of Five Rings, and then another one called Dokodo, which is essentially the Path of Aloneness, and that was kind of the one that we were like, that sounds like Stoicism, and it pretty much is, where that whole idea of the Path of Aloneness is because he was pretty much a wanderer for he did a lot of fighting. He did fight under one of the shogunates in the army, but for the most part, he just kind of was a wanderer. He fought these duels. He just sort of lived quietly, and uh, yeah, there's not a crazy amount of stuff. He did get eczema when he was younger. That's a thing that a lot of places things point out, which is another kind of theme that you see with a lot of these Stoics is that they often have something that is
So I always got a weird skin condition.
yeah, yeah. Practice Stoicism and you'll get the skin condition, or vice versa. You get a skin condition, you'll practice Stoicism.
I
Um,
guess I gotta be a stoic now.
exactly. Sorry, bro. It's just how it works. And
Yep.
so, but yeah, just a lot of his writings, his teachings, and everything were just about self mastery and being able to control your mind, control the self, and to not let the world get to you, not let people, things affect you. He kind of, I guess you could say that to a degree, he does partially echo Epictetus with the idea of accept death accept that death can always be around every corner, and that remember you're gonna die, and that's okay. That's a kind of another thing that gets echoed in his writings, which uh, Epictetus talked about a lot. So he gets lumped in, and then there's one that I don't agree with, but okay, because if you look around enough, you will see people trying to throw in Machiavelli with Stoicism, and I'm like,
Oh my gosh.
what?
Yeah.
You look at it, they're like, well, because he talks about mastering yourself so much that like you can master other people. I'm like, okay, see, there's problem one is other people are not actually within your control. Like, yeah, you could
Yeah.
have all of the pro gamer moves or whatnot that
Mhm.
Machiavelli did or whatever, but
Yes.
the moment you
Yes.
meet somebody that has a modicum of intelligence, that it's like, oh, you don't have control over them, so you don't have control over it. So what are
Yes.
we on about?
So for those who might not know, Machiavelli, Niccolo Machiavelli is who we're talking about. He was a political actor in Renaissance Italy. Dealt, I think, was in Florence for quite a bit, but he was also dealt with papacy. If you've ever played the Assassin's Creed series,
Oh, perfect.
Assassin's Creed 2 and Brotherhood. He is a he shows up. in both of those, and he's heavily involved with the main character, assisting with the goals that you're accomplishing. Spoiler alert, but it's also been out for like 20 years.
Yeah, exactly.
Um,
If you haven't played at this point, dog, I don't. I think
yeah,
your spoiler warning
it's
is
like
kind
it's
of
like being it's like trying to avoid spoilers for the Hobbit movies. It's like, guys,
exactly,
it's
dude.
been out for almost a century at this
Oh, don't
point.
spoil Lord of the Rings, man. What do you
Yeah,
mean that they destroy the One Ring? What?
but his whole deal was, if you ever heard the term Machiavellian politics, it is the sense of the ends justify the means, so long as you are accomplishing the political goals. And might be somebody that's going to say, "Oh, you're not interpreting it just correctly." It's like we're doing we're I
This
admit
is
we're
being
painting with a broad we're it's a very broad brush that we're using here. Um,
this is
but
being
basically,
generous.
ends
What are you talking
justify
about?
the means. You can use what things you have at your disposal to subvert and get one over on your political enemies so that you can accomplish your goals. And obviously there is that level of like, okay, well, you need to be able to have mastery over yourself and not be to be unflappable to any similar attempts from your opponents, which, like, yes, obviously, like, no one that no one gets into a position of influence ideally by being somebody with very little inhibitions on themselves and being able to have some measure of emotional regulation. But that's where the line stops, because stoicism is like, you are using your logic, your self-control to have mastery over yourself, to be reasonable and self-disciplined, and to live a life of virtue at peace with nature, accepting things for as they are, not then turning around with that agency and inflicting the complete opposite on other people.
Exactly. It's just like I finally you read like these things about Musashi or whatnot, and it's all these things about the beauty of nature around him and everything. And then Machiavelli is like, yeah, if you have to kill your enemies, you should. And you're like, what? Which is also
Yeah,
kind of funny because I was just looking at the dates. It's like, oh, if Machiavelli was like 100 years before Miyamoto Musashi, which is crazy to me.
I
'Cause
yeah
I
the
just
fact
whenever
that
I
the
think
number
of him, I'm like, he was like 1800s. No, he was 1500s or
yeah
1400s,
yeah yeah
and
yeah
so
Renaissance in Italy was the 1400s.
yeah, that's just crazy to me because I'm just like, what do you mean? Every time I see the older or yeah, I guess the shogunate period like Japanese art styles, my brain always
Yeah.
thinks like, yeah, that must have been like 1,000, maybe 1,200. I'm just still learning the dates
Ye
here.
Yeah, dude, that was because, you know, maybe we'll get into it in a future podcast thing, but the Fate franchise, it's been name dropped now,
Oh no, here
uh,
we go.
goes into a lot of, like, because of the nature of the franchise, it's like, you get into a lot of myth and folklore and history, um, of the world and all these different cultures, because the figures in them are significant to the narratives of these different stories within this franchise. And the Warring States period of Japan always plays a significant role in anything historical that happens in Japanese entertainment.
I was gonna
Um,
say, Maple Story would like to have a word with you. We
yes,
have a
yes,
whole
yes,
side quest line about the warring
yes,
states in Japan. We have the Hayato and Kana class because of it. Like,
yeah,
it's just crazy. Like, you're like, oh look, Japanese entertainment, and it's more warring states. Okay.
yes. Yep, but you had, there's the Warring States period of Japan, you had the previous shogunate that was in place, and then you had all these different daimyos or governors essentially making alliances with each other, trying to either maintain the current shogunate or, as is the case of Oda Nobunaga, overthrowing the shogunate and becoming the ruler of Japan. Nobunaga did not succeed. He was killed. Well, or he commits seppuku when he was betrayed by one of his retainers. But the Tokugawa shogunate was established out of that, and I think Miyamoto Musashi was around for the third shogun after the Tokugawa shogunate was established, which was also happening at the same time as the Italian Renaissance.
It's weird.
Which, like, I made that. I was like, That is so crazy because it's like it's all it, like I didn't realize just how much like different world events were just in these different spheres in my head, and it's like having that put in perspective is like, yeah, they're like making all these incredible paintings and statues, the architecture that came out of the Renaissance era. You have Leonardo da Vinci creating all of these inventions or trying to make all of these inventions anyway, and beautiful works of art. Michelangelo painting Sistine Chapel, uh, and then on the other side of the planet, on this, you know,
Tiny island.
fairly large island and surrounding our
Oh, yeah.
smaller islands, it's just like more and
Blood.
more infighting
How
of,
much
of
blood can we
who's going to run this
possibly
thing.
make? Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
how much can we starve our population?
yeah,
Uh,
it is always funny because there's a meme that went around for a while. It said, a Dungeons and Dragons party, um, consisting of a knight, a pirate, a cowboy, and a samurai would not be historically inaccurate. And you're like, oh, that hurts my brain, but you're right.
mhm.
And
Yeah,
so all
yeah,
of those things, it was like probably about 10, 15 year, and I think it was specifically that said like of all of those people sending a fax, like a fax or something, like not like a computer, sending a telegram to Abraham Lincoln would not be out of the ordinary. And you're like,
yes,
I
yeah,
hate that. Why do you have to remind me
mhm,
that history works like this?
yes. It's
There,
wild, man.
so it's insane.
Mhm.
Um, yeah. So, anyways, yeah, Niccolo Machiavelli, he gets roped into all this, and he's actually a pretty good segue into what we're kind of the main meat of all this, and that is the PR problem that Stoicism has garnered over the last couple years. While it has gained fame, it has also gained. What I think the thing is like when anything gets popular, it tends to have detractors, whatnot. But I think that it's more that it's a almost incongruous where it's like, yeah, here's just a philosophy, but the fact that so many people seem to at best misunderstand it and at worst
Yeah.
be viciously against it. And I think even worse than the people that are just against it are the people that are like, yeah, I'm all for it, and then they grossly mischaracterize it into, like, I
Mhm.
called it broicism, or they turn it into, I need to not care about anything or anyone because love and happiness, all of those things make you weak. And so all of these so yeah, in this new wave of stoicism, I would say probably what after COVID especially was probably one of the big things that kicked that into high gear where people were like, well, I need something to keep me going. People got even more separated, and all the fallout of that we are still feeling to this day. Um, I do think that there is that was probably one of the catalysts, like most movements that we're living through nowadays. But you'll see that with all these new narratives, all these new interpretations that come up with it, it makes sense why there is a PR problem. If you just do a tertiary or like a cursory, that's what I meant to say, search for these things, especially on YouTube, good luck finding anything of note. The best thing you're going to find with Stoic in his name is probably Geeky Stoics. Uh, but
Love that
outside,
guy.
the
Are those
wonderful,
guys? There's more than one of them.
I
There's two dudes
assume.
on that channel
Yeah.
primarily.
And so, yeah, but for the most part, what you're going to find with Stoicism is usually just um, AI videos with this, like Dylan said, the same 10 quotes. And one of the things that I noticed that because I was like, yeah, we got to do this, we got to do this, we're gonna have to dive into into the depths of it. Is there's two major framings of it that, or two, or well, probably a lot more, but there's a lot of framing devices that are used in these these stoicism videos, and that is this idea of yourself as a weapon, which is very frequently repeated to a shocking and disturbing degree, as well as the idea of becoming dangerous, being which is not exactly something that I feel like anyone should aspire to unless you are living through active wartime. Maybe during that you could try to be more dangerous, but for the most part, the connotations and the idea of like you need to be dangerous. I think that like yes, there is there is a way to interpret that in a positive light of like yeah, you need to make it so that if people want to mess with you, they take one look and they go, "Ah, maybe I don't," and they know that you're just not going to be someone that they can mess with. But if you take that idea and you project that onto everybody, you're just going to end up with no friends and even more miserable. And you're like, oh, where did it all go wrong? I've been such a good stoic. And it's like, did you try being less dangerous and unapproachable? So, yeah, what do you think, Dylan? Like, from the things you were able to look at, from what you were able to um, glean through, what do you think are some of these major causes of that would make people go, "Oh, stoicism, cool."
Yeah. It's gosh, it really is just a really toxic game of telephone out there, isn't
Mhm.
it?
Yeah.
Just like one person, this is where social media is a huge problem. Uh, One person that has a big enough platform starts talking about an idea, and then it just becomes like a mind virus for everybody else. But with every iteration of people hearing about it, and then those people talking about it to other people, and not quite understanding what the first person was saying, and it just gets convoluted all the way down, and you get misinterpretation after misinterpretation over and over again. And so it's poorly represented to people that could benefit, and then it's poorly represented to people that will not see it in good faith and will make a judgment call about the school of thought or anybody that talks about it and doesn't elaborate.
Yeah, it's like explain
I
stoicism quickly. You got to be super serious. Also, this is just a quick aside, but is relevant to that. I genuinely think that the common cultural use of the word stoic is part of the problem, hilariously enough. Because when you say, oh, he looked stoic, usually means sad or just really quiet and
Mhm.
upset or angry to a degree. Like some
Yeah,
interpretation or some layer of interpretation of they looked upset and angry. They looked stoic, just mm.
yeah,
And so I think that doesn't help because that gets into the realm of they either look unapproachable to they just look detached and like they don't care.
yeah, yeah. I think I always interpreted it as if you ever read it in a book describing an appearance of a person, I always interpret it as like you're a stone, and
Hmm.
that's it. You're very stony. Like the
Yeah,
part of it,
you're
like
stoked.
you yeah, you don't uh there's not much emotion showing on the face in reaction to the circumstances, and there's little to no indication of what emotional turmoil might be going on underneath the surface. Like you are the stone and the wit that the waves are crashing against, and that's it, and you're staying exactly where you are, and you don't seem to be affected by it. I think i think like any issue, the zeitgeist about stoicism is he's got a lot of different factors in it. I I think that because we will probably be talking about it for the next couple of decades still,
Hmm.
because that is how much of an impact it had on our culture. I think COVID is still playing a significant factor in uh, what happened, what's going on with stoicism, because the upswing in interest in it is a reaction to issues that came out of COVID.
Mhm.
And what do I mean by that? That you had a not a handful of years, but like I would say 3 years, probably, depending on what part of especially the US that you were in, of just just pressure and anxiety over this virus that was going around. And am I going to catch it? Am I going to pass it to the people that I care about? I don't want them to get it, but I also need to see them because we are relational creatures. We need to spend time with people that we value because it's like how we survive is by being in community.
Hmm.
Um,
Imagine.
but we're being told that we have to stay separate. We have to stay barricaded, which is a strong word, but in many ways, it's like you are in your house, you are having stuff delivered to you, you go and pick up your groceries, you don't go into the store to get them, you minimize as much contact as you can. There was a sense of like people feeling like they were depression goes up. Everybody's online all the time. People are losing a sense of purpose and identity because all they have is the space that they're living in, the limited contact that they have with other people, and these damn phones in their hands. Uh,
Maybe it is this damn phone.
and and there's a reality of just getting caught in this downward spiral of just needing some kind of roadmap. Add that on to just like that increasing trend that I would say like and there you might be able to disagree with me on this somewhat, Jared, but
Hmm.
the attitude of like where men are being, or especially white men, because I'm seeing this a lot with just white guys that are like really about stoicism lately.
Mm.
Um, that especially because we also had the BLM riots and whatnot that
Yeah,
uh
forgot about
white
those. Maybe I
yeah
pushed them out of my mind. Didn't want to be
yeah
embarrassed.
uh
I'm black, that's why that's funny, in case you guys are wondering, like, what is so funny? That is why.
this is a reminder that Jared is black. um
Exactly.
but yeah, the there's this sense of like I'm being told like there's all this uncertainty happening. I feel like I have no purpose, no direction, I have no value. I don't have like enough people or any people around me. I need people are like whether they're conscious or not, they're searching for something, anything
Hmm.
to help them make sense of things and give them a roadmap forward. And I'd say, as far as like a lot of other philosophical options you could have out there, Stoicism is not. You could do a lot worse
Oh yeah.
than Stoicism, and it provides a sense of like the roadmap you want to help you logically with self-discipline and emotional regulation. You can look at the circumstances of your life, see how things are connected, see them for what they are, and objectively find a path forward and not be consumed by despair or anxieties or the insecurities that had been ruling over you up to that point. Now, my wife and I, when we discuss current socio-political trends and how people react to different things, we're always talking about the social conversation is always this pendulum
Hmm.
um, on different issues, where it's just like everybody's like we're in a constant state on different issues. Best case scenario, we're in this state of trying to find the middle of the pendulum swing that's the most balanced, that can be the most fair to the most people. And unfortunately, uh, the the pendulum was swinging one way, and so it's like, oh, we tried to compensate for this one issue and we overcompensated, and now there's another issue over here, so oh, now we got to swing the pendulum back over this way to try and deal with that, and oh wait, we missed this thing over here because we're not thinking of third or fourth or fifth order
Oh,
consequences for our choices.
boy.
Um,
Well. If it isn't the consequences of our actions.
yes. And so the once again to the phone point, we have this oversaturation, or maybe not oversaturation, really easy access to information.
Hmm.
Um, it is so easy to be educated on a topic, be it your own health or historical events or what have you. It's also possible to get overeducated, which is a different issue entirely.
Hmm.
But it is it is very easy to just get a bunch of information, but then just like not actually discuss it with another person and make sure that you're understanding things correctly. And so you have this very easy phenomena of I read this thing through my own lens, based on my own circumstances, and this is how I'm going to adopt it because I'm trying to wrestle some kind of control out of my circumstances. And the problem is that your pendulum, depending on how extreme you see your circumstances prior to grabbing onto, because we're talking about it, stoicism in this situation, you're going to take a interpret stoicism in very much a way that probably was not the intention, which I think speaks to the point of the whole, oh, make yourself dangerous
Hmm.
conversation. Because it's like, I have a decent idea of what that actually is supposed to mean because I've, had been through enough psychology courses and listened to Jordan Peterson talk about Carl Jung and the shadow self and
Hmm.
adopting the shadow self.
Oh,
To my
I've,
the
I've,
worst the worst Jordan Peterson impression I've ever done.
yeah, I've
Couldn't
done a
fully
little bit
commit
of
to the I couldn't fully commit to the Kermit the Frog derivative that is his voice. Uh,
Yeah, say, oh, yeah, Carl Jung. That's all I get to read now. It's pretty great. It's the only thing my
mhm,
brain wants. It's just like, hey, let's read more Jung. I'm like, stop. I want to read a normal
yeah,
book. I
yeah.
just-
But it's like the idea of like, oh, you want to be, make yourself dangerous and whatnot. It's like in our first podcast when we're talking about like men need literature and literature needs men, and the different stories that we read and the kinds of stories that appeal to men. It's like men do want to be capable and skilled and respected in those
100%.
fields. And there is just like this primal thing that guys have watching or playing through stories of men that are capable of violence and are able to do so for a greater good purpose.
That's one of the
And
things that.
that's
Oh,
that
continue.
speaks to us to some degree because that we all want to be able to do that because we're supposed to do that. We're supposed to be able to exert force to protect the people that are our responsibility. But the issue with a lot of people that latch onto stoicism because and I think this is what it might come down to is trying to reclaim some level of masculinity that they feel like they've lost is that translates into being overly masculine and you want to be dangerous when you're in that mindset and you're thinking to yourself like oh I need to be dangerous I need to be able to capable of inflicting harm it's like well but you're also
Yeah,
supposed to be level-headed enough to not do it because then you're just a tyrant
exactly. Yeah,
and
when
you're going to be
you're
walking around with your firearm
mm,
concealed under your jacket hoping that someone tries to mug you rather
exactly.
than trying to not get in that position to begin with.
When you're a hammer, everything looks like a nail, kind of thing.
Right.
uh, of everything is starting to my brain has been melting together over the last couple of weeks into this really nice soup, where every single piece of content I interact with, no matter what it is, I have been between, and I kid you not, I have been between C.S. Lewis and the Screw Tape Letters and Elden Ring, Dark Souls 2, um, romanticy and all the implications that that has, Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, and Life is Strange, the the walking simulator girl games. But all of the I love them, okay? Unironically, I absolutely adore them. But still,
Yeah,
the
considering that we had mixtape come out recently, I don't think we can really. I think
no,
we're treating Life is Strange a little too harshly with calling it a walking
exactly,
simulator.
exactly. I'm like, hey, look at this. At least they're trying to tell a story, and it's they've
There's
got
actually
some
like
good
time
ideas.
control
Exactly.
mechanics,
At the
and this
very
one it's
least,
like you can literally just not interact with the game and it still does itself, plays itself.
exactly. At the very least, they had they threw me a bone. They said, hey, Jared, look, alchemy." And I'm like, oh. Very easy to please here. They decided to be like, "Hey, here's a little bit of alchemy." I'm like, and then what? And so, but one of the things that specifically, because I've been looking at Dark Souls 2 Elden Ring, is the idea of men building society, because that is what men do. Wait, build. That's just what they do. And then once society is built, where do we go? And also playing Red Dead Redemption frequently, because that's another very thematic thing in Red Dead Redemption that you can see is the Vanderlyn gang. At least all the men are like, we are capable of so much violence, and but society doesn't want that anymore. So they don't want us anymore. So what do we do? Some of them can adjust, like Pearson can open a general store. You're also too late on spoilers for Red Dead to anybody who hasn't played it. So
It's okay.
yeah, you're 8 years behind schedule. But there's some of them are able to make that transition nicely, but for people like Dutch or Arthur and whatnot, like all they've ever really known is how to shoot guns and pull heists. And so where do they go? What do they do? And like that is one of the things that video games both graciously and unfortunately placate in men, is that desire to be like, I want to be able to enact my will in a way that lets me correct wrongs or perceived wrongs, or just enforce my will upon some semblance of a world. Because we're once society gets built, men sort of lose that purpose a lot, and it's like, okay, well, at least that aspect of themselves, and it gets to kind of like a, okay, now what, in the same way of for risk of flattening an entire gender, but I mean, you know what, they do it to men all the time. So but where we see people talk about the empathy hole that women often will manifest when they reach their late 20s and 30s and they don't have any children. Well, I have to mother something. I have to. It's wired in here. I got to do something.
Mhm.
And so for men, we're just like, we got to fight something. I can't just sit here and just have a nice peaceful life. This sucks. And so
We'll be doing
um
something.
exactly. And so we're like, I don't know, that looks like an enemy, I'll go punch it. And we just will get ourselves into that trap. But a lot of the things with stoicism are kind of for, how do you reel that back in and go, I need to direct this. I need to direct the masculine energy to, of quote unquote, enacting will upon something or the world as a whole,
Mhm.
into productive and creative endeavors. One of the things that I always champion of redirecting emotions and redirecting feelings and passions is to create, because to write, to get into coding, to make a video, to do something that gets you, that is a form of manifesting will. Because yes, uh combat is a form of manifesting will. When you're running around with swords and stabbing people, that is you saying, I don't want this person around anymore, gone. But in the same way, you can go, hey, I have this idea for a character or a world or something, and I don't know what to do with it. I should just keep it in because no one's gonna read it. No, just create it, put it somewhere, put it on Wattpad. I don't or whatever, wherever you want to. Put it on AO3. They'll take literally anything, and I mean literally everything. And just create something and make sure it just make it meaningful to you. That was just a side tangent I noted from what you were talking about, men feeling that whole of self. And I do agree with your point that I think it was around COVID that we ramped up the cultural man hate, or the where it was like a for about the 2012s or maybe 2015ish or so until COVID, it was more of just like yeah, men, we've got to, that was where we were really seeing, the fourth wave feminism and whatnot. And it was starting to, they knew like, oh, if we go straight into like full on, vocal man hating, it's gonna not do anything. It's gonna be bad, and everyone's gonna immediately be against us. And then we, of course, got to 2020 some odd, and that was, I think, where we saw the mainstream adoption of the um, anti-white, anti-man sort of rhetoric, which is fascinating, of course, to watch. Being black, because you just sort of are, I'm like, wow, they're basically talking about me, but they're not, because they said white. So even though they said, oh, people of this exact, I'm like, I meet every one of you these criterias except for the color of my skin. What are you gonna do now? And so it's insane. That's also, of course, what the biggest failure of identity politics is. Outliers exist, and then you run into a Jerry and it's like, all right, put him in a category. It's like, we can't. We are physically incapable of that. And
Yeah.
so it's pretty fun. But yeah, no, I do agree to an extent that when we ramped up like the cultural, it is acceptable to say that men are trash, and that we don't need this, and all the anti-whiteness, all these things. People that didn't really have a grounding were desperate to find something, because even if it's like, this stuff's stupid, they look behind themselves to be like, right, and they realize there's nothing that they're allowed to be proud of. I guess we're going to really tread in some you know in some advertiser unfriendly territory or whatever. um there's That's one of the things that kind of consistently comes up if you spend enough time on the internet, is that a lot of people, especially for white people, they they are like, yeah, they made it quote, not illegal, but they made it not okay to have any part of racial heritage that you're proud of unless you are part of a racial minority.
Right.
And so if you were, but even then they can't even define white. So it's even funnier where they're like, because you're white. You're like, which one? Am I Irish? Am I German? Am I which part? You're gonna have to point to me on a map where I'm from.
There's some there's some Latinos that are also white.
Exactly. Yeah. It's insanity that they have this, but that is, I think, was the biggest thing of, you were talking about disconnection from source, and ripping people away from from history and heritage and understanding of culture and whatnot. That is when people start to grasp at whatever they can find, because it's like, I can't look back, you guys. We've got we've only had a few small periods of history, and especially for white races, those that are considered white races are what is like 6-7% of 6-7. Sorry, my brain
I
couldn't
was
help it.
hoping you wouldn't do it.
Brain rotted to the core, bro. But it's like 6 or 7% of the global population is white, so there's not a crazy amount of history of things, like, and even then there's still a lot of huge achievements that nobody sane, let me remind you, sane could gloss over. But
Right.
yeah, so these people, they found stoicism, they're like, hey, this originated kind of at least orbiting ancient Rome. And so it talks about being strong, being tough, being strong, and both physically and emotionally. And from there, it just, like Dylan said, I totally agree with that, is interpretation oftentimes does live in the hands of someone's situation when they find something new that's new to them at least. Their interpretation of it will absolutely be colored by the circumstances that they found it under. If you're, it's different finding a bottle of water if you're on a nature hike that you planned and you brought your own canteen for, versus if you find it in the middle of the desert and you haven't had water in 2 days. Like, those are two very different circumstances to find water in. Yeah, I totally agree with that. Sorry, did you want to add something before I continue rambling? Um,
It was a thought popped into my head that I had come across relatively recently that I heard it. I'm like, yeah, it's kind of happening, and that this pendulum swing for men uh, in the current culture of trying to reclaim masculinity, but you have this like, when we were in high school and going into college, like you definitely like saw lots of guys that were like puffing up their ego a lot and making themselves like seem tougher or more charismatic, or did I say more tougher? More tough.
More tougher. Rrr.
More many moosin in the
Yeah,
woods it's in.
what's the sense? About two
uh
boxes of donuts.
yeah, love
uh,
Brad Regan.
I was gonna say
Uh
elite ball knowledge there. I hate that we
yes,
could just do that.
same person, different skin color.
Exactly.
Uh the yeah, so the this pendulum swing for men. That someone, I forget where it was that I heard it. Someone had said like the far right uh like cultural surge for men really was inevitable, and it's going to continue to happen for a while. Thought about that and I'm like, yeah, like especially if you see like some of the trends among Gen Z.
Mhm.
um they're collecting data on and how people are like responding to their circumstances. Like you have, the millennial, our generation of millennials, like that we went through a pretty long period of time and might still be for the most part, like lots of people not going to church within the millennial generation. Gen Z, a lot of them are going to church, are saying that they're going to church. They have a relationship with Jesus, um, and uh, there's also like that lack of desire to like go and do the career grind like they've seen like Gen X and millennials do, because it doesn't seem like there's much worth in doing that.
Mhm.
But I'm looking around and I'm like, I'm seeing it happen, that there's just these different pockets and groupings of people that are of men that are like looking at their circumstances around them, and they're looking for someone to blame. They're looking for some kind of purpose to latch on to, or some kind of like guidance, and it's not always like the right thing that they're latching onto, but it's the thing that's there. And it's like looking, it's like if you've ever been to the beach before, like especially on like probably I'd say.
I lived in California for so long, dude.
Oh, yeah, that's right. That's
That's
right, yeah.
all I
You
ever
lived in
did when I
California
was
for a long time.
young.
Yeah, yeah. Sorry, landlocked in Arizona, this was
Mm,
a novel experience for me. But yeah, like you go out on the beach and then you get caught in a current.
mm. Oh
And
yeah.
if you're young, you don't know that you just swim to the side and you'll get out
Oh
and
yeah.
you'll be fine. But it's like you're watching this current drag stuff out, and like you don't have any control on where the current's going and how strong it is, but it's happening anyway.
Hmm.
And you have the opportunity to, I guess, choose a different way to go. Yeah, the
Yeah.
analogy got a little away from me, but
No, no, that makes sense. I
the
think
the,
that
the
the
current
dark side.
that is happening and you don't have control over it, and it's like you're gonna have to deal with it.
Hmm.
Is
Yeah,
very
no,
much there.
the idea of riptides, that underwater current pulling you. And yeah, I do think that that's actually not I don't think that's a terrible analogy of that feeling of, all right, the wave has already crashed and we are now seeing the current pull back out. And the inner alchemist in me wants to start invoking, all the different, principles of polarity and all the things talked about in the Kabbalion that are essentially just literally it's the entire Kabbalion is just seven different ways to say, hey, did you know that everything has a sort of dualism to it? Literally everything. That's it. There you go. Goodbye. And then that's the whole book. But 200 pages of everything is some form of a dualistic relationship, and you just have to follow dualistic relationships even in each side of those dualistic relationships. But regardless, the law of polarity is one of them, and that's that things will that go one way will come back the other way, will go one way, come back the other way. Part of that, part of the whole, the mysticism, whatever, the Kabbalion is mastering how to not let it go back in the negative direction, whatever your negative direction is, but also understanding how much of it you can control. But regardless, yeah, I think that it's not too unfair to say that the last 10, maybe 15 years have been a pretty gnarly wave crash, for lack of a better term. It's been a pretty big wave, and so I feel like the tide pulling back out is going to be even stronger, which, there's that little part of me that's like, yay, and the bigger part of me that's like, guys, let's rein it in. Let's not get too crazy in here, okay?
Yeah.
Yeah, I do like seeing, obviously, people returning to the church is a huge part of it. That is obviously going to be good. People that are finding Christ and are exploring for deeper spiritual meaning, because everything nowadays is so devoid of meaning. That's kind of what we were talking about in our first podcast, or our first session, was part of the reason that men are not in literature, and literature doesn't seem to be appealing to men, is that just meaning and deeper philosophical spiritual meaning has just been drained from everything. And so we have almost all of our entertainment, part of entertainment at least used to be, it makes you think, because they couldn't make not everything could be a live service, so they actually had to make it so that it stuck with you, and you'd be like, I'm going to think about this for a long time, because I you know I have to go and work my fields at 6 in the morning, and I need something to keep me occupied. So, like, there was a lot of time and room for reflection and depth. But as everything has become more and more increasingly shallow, people just don't really want to engage with a whole lot of entertainment, because they're like, it's going to just be as shallow as the last thing. And
Yeah.
so yeah, that's why we see people that are desperately searching for things that feel significant, that have purpose, that are, and especially looking back to ancient things, like, as my story of being, of kind of by accident, but playing at least one of two games that I was playing was more philosophically inclined, between Elden Ring and Maple Story. I'll let you guess which one it was. uh, Plot twist, it was both of them. But the you know my I would definitely say, to a degree, that my descent into alchemy and mysticism and all this stuff that would have never occurred to me um x amount of years ago, really anything beyond 2 years ago, that I'd be like, yeah, I could probably inadvertently fall down an infinite rabbit hole of that. uh just kind of caught on, because I was in a very weird spot in life, and um just between, because I was moving to a different state, and there was just all kinds of stuff going on, and I just felt very lost, and sort of like, what are we doing? in those 2 years of studying this stuff that was has been known for centuries as occultism and heresy. It's strengthened my faith in the most profound of ways. It's kind of hilarious to me to be like, oh, okay, yeah, so nothing is off limits for God to use for good. Okay, cool, love that. Love
Yeah.
that. And so um, but yeah, people are going to just about anything, especially the older it is, the better it seems to be.
Yes.
Uh,
The I think that's really what it comes down to is that like we live in a time that everything is so fast paced.
mhm.
Um, whether it's information, the trends, the
Cultural
you
memory.
know,
Ooh.
the go-to forms of art consumption, which is to say entertainment consumption.
Mhm.
Like I was in high school from 2006 to 2010, and then I was in college for the next 5 years after that. And I think of just how significant it was to like go with your friends on a Thursday night or a Friday night to go see like the newest movie in like
Oh gosh.
a series. Like I remember, you know, waiting in line at like 8 to 10 p.m. or something, uh, for like the next Pirates of the Caribbean movie or a Marvel movie,
Yeah, I remember
because like they were just so cool.
I saw the midnight showing of Star Wars Episode 3 in 2005. My mom got us tickets and we sat out. I think we were fourth in line for our midnight showing. Yeah, that was a core memory.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah. But yeah, like it's but you think like okay, s- streaming platforms have kind of ruined the movie going experience to some degree because like you could go to the theater and go see that movie, or you can just like wait a few months for it to show up on a streaming platform somewhere and not spend like $30 on a date night. uh, and you know, TV shows, it's like once again, streaming platforms. There's so many options. Like you sit down with your lunch or your dinner to find something and you spend 15 minutes scrolling and you just end up back at the top of your list and you haven't decided on something because there's just too much stuff out there and you know all of it is going to be the same level of quality, which is like it's not going to have that like highly valuable uh takeaway for you.
Deeper
And
meaning,
so people are
significance.
looking back in time to like what are the traditional values? What are the things that have stood the test of time? What are the classics that people look back and they're like, "Oh yeah, man, that like we quoted that for the next decade," kind of thing, you know? Like we're not we don't quote like many my wife and I like we don't quote many like TV shows and movies that we've watched since we've been together and which is not to say we haven't watched like good stuff together. Like there's some stuff. Our favorite one of our favorite movies to watch together is the Pride and Prejudice with Keira Knightley, and it's fantastic. We also have the BBC miniseries adaptation of the book, which is also great. They're both great, um, but we find ourselves quoting more often Monty Python or
Oh
Princess
gosh.
Bride or Pacific Rim or like for cool moments. That might be
Yeah.
more me and Ryan, my brother-in-law.
Yeah.
But
You'll never
like,
challenge a Sicilian to a battle of wits.
you
Oh man,
ever
that
heard of
was.
Plato? Socrates? Idiots.
Oh,
Okay.
those were a classic on the bus to Christian camp. Did you ever go to Hume Lake?
Did ever what?
Did you ever go to Hume Lake Christian camp? It's up in the
No,
Sierras.
we did I went to Big Bear once.
Okay. Hume Lake is this amazing, genuinely wonderful Christian camp. Every summer we would go for a week. but one of the like every single year our church would always have Princess Bride to show in the on the bus ride. That is why
Awesome.
I know I've watched the movie at least 4 times, and every time was on
Yeah.
a bus to Christian camp. So
Yeah. That was quoting Princess Bride was like basically how oh, Ryan knew that it's like, okay, yeah, I'm okay with this guy dating my sister.
all right,
It's like,
he's working on some elite ball knowledge. We'll let him through.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Like literally, we was sitting down as like first like actual dinner sharing with her family, and Ryan is going off to LARP group, and I was like, he probably knows this one. I'm like, have fun storming the castle. And he's like, you think it'll work? It's like a miracle. I was just like, all right, I'm in. Like I could see, and I could see like he's not turning to face to return the quotes, but he's like walking out, and he's just doing that like very knowing Ryan smile.
Yeah, oh yeah. I know that smile. So the reason that I even know Dylan, a little side note of lore here, I only know Dylan because Ryan, who he is talking about, his brother-in-law, was my roommate in college for 2 years, not connected. It was like freshman year, then junior year of college, I guess, or first year and third year. And so yeah, we were roommates for those times. And
They
so
were roommates.
yeah, oh my God, they were roommates. And so, but pretty much I didn't really, I kind of fell out of contact with Ryan for years, and then he sent me a message on Discord. He was like, "Hey, but I feel like you need to meet my brother-in-law because he plays Yu-Gi-Oh." And I was like, "Oh, okay." And anybody that plays Yu-Gi-Oh, he didn't tell me that he's actually a carbon copy of me, just with white skin. And I was like, "Oh." Okay, yeah, all right. So he and I have had probably about we have like a 90% life experience overlap. So maybe like
Yeah,
10% room there for like, I haven't seen that, haven't heard that. But most of it, it's just like,
that
yeah,
That Venn diagram is damn near a circle.
it's very close to being a circle. And so, yeah, just little thing, just be like, hey, random mention of early 2000s Christian rock group, and I just know it. And he's like, okay, cool. Just weird little tidbits that it's like,
Yep.
we're in that danger zone of, make your password hint something only you would know about yourself. And I'm like, I'd probably
There's
get it
one other
right.
person that would probably be able to guess this.
So yeah, that there's some knowledge on, on how I even know Dylan. But I did want to say something to your point, because you were talking about the overload and the way that people are
Mm,
very much, we marinate and are inundated with so much info that it is a source for a lot of people, a source of paralysis to a degree, where we have such an abundance of possibility that it's a phrase that I learned for some time ago, of analysis paralysis, where we start thinking about, well, what could I do? And what could I do? What should I choose? And we just can't, because instead of going, oh, I could do A or B, I like both, but I kind of like A more. Okay. But when you have A through 7 billion, suddenly making a choice, every little thing you get, the satisfaction of the choice, um, the satisfaction of the choice you did make becomes exponentially less with however many choices you were presented. It was actually something, if I remember correctly, I would need to pull up the exact, um, but I am going with my own memory here. I'm really embracing my ancient philosopher, and embracing both my own memory and my own personal observation of, the more things you are given to choose. When you finally do pick, that takes you longer to pick, you don't feel as satisfied, because your brain just cannot help but look and go, there were like 400 other videos I didn't watch. Was this worth my 10 minutes? What if one of those other ones was really good? And that's also how they kind of, Skinner box you and do well, maybe just one more. Everything is runs off of the similar psychology of human tendency to try to optimize for dopamine and
Mhm.
eventually just frying the receptors altogether. But yeah,
Yeah.
the information overload is a very documented event and a very documented human experience w- that we have started to kind of just see people shut down or start just kind of flinging themselves into anything that feels more meaningful and significant than a YouTube or an Instagram feed or just about anything because we just we're so submersed in information we're so submersed in all this information all the time that we just long for the days when people were trying their best with their best guesses and at least from what we know it seems like we can read more pleasant or at the very least they seem to be able to find more happiness in their arguably worse situation or objectively worse some of them were under war persecution famines death whatnot and now we have all the food you could eat in the world and all the information and all the education, all of the entertainment at the touch of a button, and we are not posting the best happiness metrics. So there just might be something there. Who
Yeah.
knows?
I'm definitely to the point of being inundated with options and content and entertainment and just like the constant dopamine hit. Like I have definitely been reaching a point lately where I'm like realizing just how much I listen to on a day to day, and that number one, it can be very distracting
Mhm.
from activity on things that are probably more important. Like it's important to be informed and to have multiple perspectives on different issues, but also like, you know, is it something that's really helpful right now to be doing that? Um, Probably not. Uh, but also just like the amount that you consume, the amount that gets consumed, and where does it even go? Like
Real.
you take it in, you digest it very quickly and move on to the next thing. But it's like, how is that benefiting you to have been going through all of these videos or these podcasts or whatever else it is that you're consuming? Um, or is it just like, you just need something going because your brain has
Mhm.
been trained that that is a source of happy chemical. Do
Mhm.
more of thing that gives happy chemical because we need happy chemical. It's like and so I'm trying to like not like I'll still listen, still try to listen to music more because that's just it makes it makes working easier. It
Yeah.
makes any activity easier to be just listening to music, especially music you've already heard, because then you just don't have to you have to think about it less.
Yeah, I
Uh,
don't think music is nearly as much of an issue relative to a lot of other things that are just sort of the brain cloying for more info, more something. But at least music is structure and harmony, and is like, hey, here's something that we can latch onto. That's pleasant.
hmm Yeah.
But yeah, I do agree that yeah, there is a tendency as well as a sort of ingrained training for anybody that grew up in a digital age, really millennials and beyond, that it's just I've got to be doing something. I have to be interacting with some information source.
hmm
There's a couple of ways that people can respond to it, where you can either throw yourself in fully and drive yourself crazy. You can try to pull yourself away from it, and then drive yourself crazy with something else. That's always a fun thing. or obviously one of the big things, and how this all ties back into stoicism. We were apparently talking about that. I love our tangents. um how it ties into stoicism is the idea of acknowledging and recognizing that mental urge to just be like, go consume, consume, consume product, and go.
Do not question product, just consume product and be excited for next product.
Yes, consume product, be excited for next product.
Yeah.
It is telling the brain, no, I don't want to do that. I know you want the happy chemical. I know you want that release. Too bad. We're going to go do something productive. We're going to go do something that is healthy. We're going to go do something creative. We're going to make you work by imagining. We're going to do anything that is not consume.
Yeah.
And that is, I think, one of the bigger things that you could also, in some interpretations, could classify Stoicism as partially due to a response to this sort of, weird neoliberal capitalist hellscape that we all exist in, where everything is, like we were saying, consume product and get excited for next product, where people are like, I don't want to. I want to go
It's just
do
like, but
some.
why
Yeah,
though?
yeah. What's exciting about new product, and why would I eat? Why would I eat? Why would I consume current product if I'm already, if I already have so many other products? I'm very full of product. I don't think I want more product. And people, we have plenty of product. I want meaning. I want, the
Yeah.
way I've heard it in a lot of capacities is dopamine junk food. We've been having dopamine McDonald's for a decade now, and people are like, "Could I get a dopamine steak dinner or something?" um that something that I have to sit with, something I have to digest, something that is going to hit different parts of my palate, something that's going to make me think, ooh, this was an interesting flavor choice, something that I may not be used to. Can I have that? I think that's what people are being pushed towards. And like I was talking earlier, that I've been playing a lot of Dark Souls and Elden Ring and whatnot. I think that because we were seeing the fringes of this starting up in the 2010s, I do think that the massive explosion of Dark Souls and everything else around it, Elden Ring, Dark, and all the other sequels, Sekiro, Bloodborne, the reason that all of those have gotten to be so popular is people were craving, either consciously or not, or they just have maintained popularity as this, symptoms have gotten worse and worse with people, that they've so badly wanted entertainment that challenged them in more ways than just mechanically. Like, yes, everybody knows, oh, the Souls games, Elden Ring, whatnot, they're so hard, but they wanted
Hit
something that,
boxes and iframes and
yeah, you have,
builds.
yeah, you got to actually think about your build. You actually have to, you might actually have to fight a boss more than once. You're not going to have a mixtape experience. People were desperately like, "Oh, this is good," but then it also, at least for some people, it intellectually stimulated them. And they're like, "Why is that like that? That doesn't make sense." I've had games that have handheld me through the story for years now, and now why is it like this? This doesn't. Why is Radagon America? Why is that? Doesn't make any sense. How does that connect? How is that? It gets the brain thinking and looking. And I guess
Mhm.
something I saw here, I
Need to
saw,
understand what this lore is
yeah,
behind these things that are happening.
I saw something a few. Speaking of the word lore, that's what I was gonna get at. I saw a video that I was like, I need to watch that later. That said, the lore slop writing epidemic, and I was like, I kind of agree. Dark Souls thankfully has very deep opaque lore and all this stuff that's like, oh, you got to really think and whatnot. But it also kind of opened the door for everybody to go, yeah, I could make a world with opaque deep lore too. See, you've got the underpants of Sir Goramon, and you don't know what happened to him, but these could be important to the lore. Who knows? And it turns into this mess, and then Five Nights at Freddy's happens. I adore that series. I adore the creator. I respect its vision, but also, what are we doing, dog? I
Yeah.
yeah. So, but that happens a lot. Even then, I think FNAF is far more cohesive than even like than a lot of the clones that came after it.
Yeah.
Or the people like, oh, I could make
Of
a
like other mascot horror, you
yeah,
mean?
other mascot horror things like, oh, we're gonna just lore. It's got more lore, but I do think that still Dark Souls was kind of the grandfather of all this, where they were just like, "Hey kids, you want a story? Yeah, too bad. Figure it out." But you
Yep.
taped the pages of the book shut. Oh, so I did. And slammed the door behind them. It's so, um, yeah, it's a
Actually, you have to go to this other location and do this convoluted NPC quest to be able to get the special sanctified knife of letter opening so that you can open the book to see the rest of the pages.
Oh, well, yeah, well, that yes, but the book only has one page in. That's because you haven't killed the great dragon boss, who will actually, if you hold the book out while he's using his fire attack, it'll melt the glue, and you'll be able to see it. But if you do it for too long, it'll melt the whole book. So you have to do it. You got to figure this out. It just stuff
How I
like
feel
that.
trying to get the unalloyed gold needle in Elden Ring.
Oh yeah, fun. Yeah, don't you just quit and reload the area? Everybody can figure that out without a guide. Don't worry. Um, but yeah, it's I do think that these games, and the reason that that lore slop exploded. I don't think that every game that comes out is just lore slop and whatnot. I do actually very much like Five Nights lore. I'll defend it because I'm like, hey guys, there's alchemy there, and then nobody listens to me. And but Dark Souls very much the same thing. Once you start reading it at more of like a mythological and thematic level, you're like, oh, that makes so much more sense. Okay. But you uh people want that, but yeah, yeah, that's it. People want that. This seems pretty cut and dry. Did you have something you wanted to add? I was gonna
I,
move to
I,
another
I
thing. So.
I think we can move on to the next point or final point
Yeah.
actually
Yeah.
here.
So, yeah, the last thing that we wanted to talk about here is a couple of, very valid critiques of Stoicism itself. Like we've talked a little bit that, yeah, there's a lot of unreliable interpreters of Stoicism, be it faceless AI channels telling you to be a weapon. You need to be so dangerous that people look at you and understand you're not someone that they mess with. That is one of them, and then your Sigma dude bro grindset Andrew Tate types and whatnot that are like, yeah, being a stoic means that you need to just like not care about anyone, have no emotional attachment to anything. You have to be able to let everything go. You have to just sit there quietly, wake up at 3 a.m., go to bed at 12. Uh, huh? Just stuff like that, where it's it's all very vapid and almost hilariously it's its own anti-stoicism, because a lot of this dude bro stoicism is usually just, yeah, you got to do all this stuff. You got to get your sigma grind set. Why? So that you can chase more wealth. Why? So you can look cool for chicks. That's not what stoicism's about.
Yeah.
And so uh yeah, but what are some of these critiques of the teachings themselves? Beyond just the poor faith interpretations and beyond the same 10 quotes being regurgitated.
Mhm. Ironically, I think a critique that I would say that there kind of is about Stoicism, probably going to be regurgitating a bit of geeky Stoics here.
Hmm.
The points that they made. I do see, before I get to that, I do see these some of the same uh, because it is easy to follow to the logical conclusion some parts of Stoicism to that place of, you do become so, uh, quote unquote, in control that that you can be perceived as being apathetic and unempathetic, um, by not allowing your circumstances to affect your mood. That also sometimes makes it really difficult to relate to other people,
Oh yeah.
um, which is a problem because while you might think you have mastery over yourself, you're leaving some people behind that kind of need you to be more present than that.
Mm.
Um, and I think, to the point where, I would encourage, maybe we can put an image up of the actual like thumbnail from Geeky Stoics here, but
I can do
uh,
that.
yeah,
I'm
the
something of an editor myself.
uh, but they did a video within, I'd say, the last month, um, of three great authors of,
Three men,
uh, Chesterton,
3 weeks
Tolkien,
ago.
and C.S. Lewis, uh, discussing Stoicism in itself, and each of them acknowledging that, you know, there are some useful things, uh, that can be found here. Ultimately, it comes up short. And I think Chesterton was like had the
Mm.
most scathing review of it. It's just like, great, you know, you're emotionless and you don't, you know, you're not affected by anything, and that just like you're not living life
Mm.
anymore. You're
Yeah,
not really
you're in
living with
control.
other people anymore.
Yeah,
Um,
you're a statue now.
Congratulations. What do you, what's the quality of the life that you live and the people around you? Um, but it ultimately like it I I look at stoicism and I'm like, I can see that like the ideals of it have good overlap in a lot of ways with, uh, how we as Christians are called to live. Um, where it's like with stoicism, it says, see the world for what it is, see your circumstances for what it is. You are in charge of yourself, how you interpret things and how you react to things. Um,
Ironically, as most of these thoughts were being formed while Christians were being burned at stakes, but yes, it is ironic how
yes.
well they go hand in hand.
Yeah, it well, and that's the funny thing is that where, as stoicism come, the foundation of, I'd say not, yeah, stoicism came out of cynicism, which cynicism is, you know, societal like, that the human is as a thinking animal, um throw societal constraints are absurd. The material pursuits are not worthy, um and the logical, the perspective is it's society that is the issue and not me, is where you see a lot of the implication there,
Yeah.
is that it's the society that I need to shed off of myself in order to be truly free. And then you're living in a ceramic pot in the gutter like Diogenes, and
We.
you're doing things, nothing worthy, I would argue. He yeah that's a whole nother rabbit hole.
It really
But
is.
Stoicism says to look inward, and it's just like whether you are a slave like Epictetus or you are an emperor like Marcus Aurelius, you only have control over so much. Beyond yourself, what you do have pretty good control over entirely is yourself and your own reactions. And so whereas like rather than shifting the onus on other people, like you are to be the captain of your own vessel and live a virtuous life. But the problem with Stoicism is that like where's the end goal? Where's the finish line? Where's the hope? You know?
Like
So
any philosophy.
congratulations, you have lived your 80 years, ideally. You have pursued this system of ethics and virtue. You have for yourself lived lived a life that you believe is worth living. But I ask myself, like, what was the purpose of it? Is it for yourself? Is it for your family? What is the value of the impact there? And what beyond yourself is the reason for virtue? What is the source of this moral framework that we have used for this philosophy? And with Stoicism, excuse me, it is it is purely natural. It is the earthly material. It is a really good reach for the divine truth. But it, like every other human philosophy, it does come up short because ultimately, like the natural world, and they, they had some metaphysical views on on life and the world. But is it God and a higher moral authority that is the definition of what is good and what you would consider a fulfilling life? Or is it I am doing what is suitable to me or just simply suitable for the culture that I am currently in,
Mhm.
um, to the best of my ability? That's where the buck stops. It's like, okay. And that effort gets snuffed out the moment you die.
I
The
think
hope of
uh,
the hope in Christ is that the good work there. It's not the saving thing for you, but you are contributing, and there is a reward in that, and then there is a hope in that at the end that the life did mean something and it had eternal significance.
mm, yeah, I do think that to an extent, one of the things that Stoicism does better than a lot of other uh, philosophies of the world that we've looked at is that it does open the path, and it does kind of open you to be able to build legacy in a much more meaningful and effective way than a lot of things like cynicism would. Because cynicism, living in a ditch in a gutter, whatnot, is or living in a pot in the gutter is not
We are being
exactly.
a bit hyperbolic because
Yeah,
Diogenes is like one of the most extreme examples of
yeah,
cynicism in practice. There are
but
lesser, more productive applications.
Diogenes is unironically still remembered because of doing crazy things. That seems
Yeah.
to be kind of the big through line for him is like, oh yeah, he's the guy who did the behold a man and whatnot with a chicken with all its feathers plucked.
Yep.
And so, but ultimately, it's like what lasting meaningful things do you have there? Like, yeah, we could people will laugh about, oh yeah, Diogenes, he did some crazy stuff, but for something for a stoic, philosophers, thinkers, you'll have you'll have things of like, what did they write, what did they create, be out of these things. And obviously, one of the biggest illusions, or I guess the closest thing that humans ever can and will and should achieve towards immortality is having a family and children. Those are your success in your that is your future generations, however many thousand years down the line. How do you make sure that they are taken care of, and that they remember you in a way that they want to share about you? And I think that these stoic ideas of being mastering yourself, that you are not, losing self-control at them or at other people and whatnot, and that they are proud to talk about you. That is kind of a form of a lasting impact. But even then, yes, there is, how do I put that? I think that Stoicism does possibly one of, if not the best earthly idea of how to, separate from all of the heavenly and the divine aspects of, Christian philosophy and Christian teaching. It's one of the better ones at pulling things back down to earth and reminding you that you are still also that you are a spiritual being inhabiting a corporeal form. So you need to start acting like it. It can help you to stop being so spiritual, as I suppose you could say C.S. Lewis kind of said, that spirituality looks so unspiritual. And so there are times that in just about anything, especially when it comes to the untangible aspects of humanity, that we can get lost in the untangible. Of We can get lost in endless patterns of intellectual pursuit and being like, like a lot of philosophies just end up, tail chasing or navel gazing. Pick your favorite. Or even in, spiritual pursuits, while good, you can end up just praying all day and being like, I prayed, and then I ate some food, and then I went back and I prayed some more. And that is not what you are called to do. That is not what you were created to do. You are a being with utility and agency and a purpose that needs to be enacted on the world. You have not you've unlocked the let's put it that way. You've unlocked the good ending, if you've accepted faith, but you have not beaten the game yet. So you cannot unplug the controller, you cannot go AFK. You
Yeah.
still need to sit down and actually beat the final boss, or whatever your final boss is. And so you cannot just, I think that Stoicism does a great job at pulling you back in to say, hey, you still got a lot of, yeah, you unlocked the good ending, 10 minutes into the game or
Mhm.
whatever time you did. You
Yep.
still have to play it through until the end credits. So yeah, that's the best way I
Yeah.
could probably think about it.
Yeah.
Um,
I think that's this good is like it, I think, and this I probably would say is my final thought on the subject is philosophy is a very mercurial subject, and a lot of different cultures have had a lot of different ideas on just the human condition and what's the best way to live, and some of them have pretty good overlap, and others are totally off their rockers. No one is complete. I would say Christian, obviously, and there's my own bias, and there's also my own ever deepening understanding in my Christian faith, and the right way to live is that it is complete, but it is possible, and I think you said something along these lines that getting too deep in philosophy, and this is why a lot of people scoff at it, is so many either think themselves into going crazy
hmm.
or think themselves or into being crazy or just filled with despair and throwing their hands up world, which some
Right.
do with stoicism or nihilism. Um, or they just think themselves into being just really stupid.
Yeah,
um,
do not open your mind so much that your
and
brain falls out.
yeah.
Thank you, Winston Churchill.
Yes. Great guy. But yeah, there's the good and the bad of any school of thought. Uh, with all things of trying to change the perspective or changing behavior, look at the results, whether it be your own emotional baseline, your internal thought process about things, how you're speaking, how you approach the different things in your life, with after extended exposure to that new well that you're drawing from, so to speak. And if you're finding that the application of a thing is unhealthy, it's draw you're getting results that are unfavorable. Maybe it's time to reassess and readjust. And yeah, that's that's all I have to say about that.
Yeah, I agree with that. Me and Dylan talked a lot on and off of this podcast here, just about the kind of the implications and also the endpoints of philosophical pursuit, as he knows that I am generally speaking constantly embroiled in some form of weird mythological philosophical understanding pursuit weirdness. And but we've talked about it a few times, and as I've conveyed it to him, and I think, I genuinely think it's probably good that I say it here as well. But as I've conveyed to him on a few occasions, and I think is worth conveying here, this pursuit that I've been on in the like mysticism, some would call it occultism. I just use alchemy as a blanket term, hermeticism if I want to be even more blanket. Um, I find that it is a helpful lens. It has been a for me specifically, because of how my brain thinks, because of how I am wired, being able to draw this myriad of parallels to other stories and shows and anime and games and everything I've read, seen, done, drawing it all back together, and then, at least for me, comparing it to the Bible and being like, where, what here actually is compatible with the scripture provided. And this is obviously, I do not have a lab. I am not, mixing salt, sulfur, mercury, whatever, in my room or anything, but more from a metaphorical sense. The parts of, people call it spiritual alchemy or esotericism, that can be applied to everyday life. What is compatible with faith, and that is where I get to this. And I have kind of come to the realization where I started kind of with this gung ho. Everybody should get into this, and now that I've spent 2 years instead of like 1.5, I'm like, you got to be a real special kind of psycho if you are getting into this. I think that it can be immensely spiritually dangerous if you are going into it unguarded or unprepared, because as most people know, that the fact that I feel I have to specify, occultism, alchemy, whatnot, as not summoning demons in my room is pretty good proof on its own that it has been heavily co-opted by darker forces. Part of my goals in life, with my many creative pursuits, is to sort of use this same structure that has been associated with the outright satanic, for the longest time, back into how people talk about, at worst, how people talk about life and philosophy, and at best, how people come to faith. That is kind of my spectrum. That is the spectrum I'm aiming for, because you cannot ever guarantee. But that is what I want. I want to help contribute slightly to pushing things out of the realm of gurus and grifters who are saying, "Ah, yeah, you just got to do some spirit healing and totally open your mind up to, to the world beyond. I promise there won't be any demons there. Trust." And
Yep.
so just like with any pursuit, any philosophy, any idea that you want to look further into, it is very worthwhile to do some pull outs and like pull yourself back and go, how am I doing? ask people around you. That's the real litmus test. You're like, I'm doing pretty good. I feel good about myself. I've been doing this, I don't know, stoicism thing, and I feel pretty all right. And then you ask your friends or your wife or something, they're like, you've kind of been a jerk the last couple weeks. And you'd be like, oh, really? And like get to the bottom, like, was I just having an episode and like I just wasn't following, this new idea, this philosophy, correctly, or was I following it in my interpretation of correctly, and I was interpreting it as being uncaring, unfeeling jerk to everybody around me. Sometimes you have to be able to pull yourself back and really reflect. Carl Jung specifically says that there is nothing that humans will try to avoid more than self reflection, but we have to do it. So.
Oof.
I mean, I need to find the exact quote. I might be able to edit this into the outro. But yeah, Carl Jung, he has a quote about that where there is nothing that humans will desperately go out of their way to avoid more than self reflection. And I agree with that completely. It's like, all right, let's take a look at how you're doing. No, no, I don't think I want to do that. Thank you, though. But
Right.
yeah, I believe that is everything that we had to say on this topic for now. I'm sure that many of our other future discussions are probably going to veer into ideas or thoughts about Stoicism, or who knows. But I guarantee this is not the last time the word Stoic is going to come out of our mouths.
Certainly
Um,
not.
but until that next time, I am Jared,
And I'm Dylan.
and this has been the Acastic Record. Thank you for listening.